The Holy Gospel, according to St. John, the first chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
John begins his Gospel with this prologue, a hymn to the Word through whom all things were created. This Word became flesh and brought grace and truth to that Word. A reading from John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What had come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light, the true light, which enlightens everyone what's coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. John testified to him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, 'He who comes after me ranks ahead of me because he was before me.' From his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. The law indeed was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. It is God, the only Son, who is close to the Father's heart, who has made him known." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Friends, you all may be seated. You know, the Gospel of John, the first part of the chapter, this prologue, it's so profound and so poetic and so moving when trying to read it. It's all those image comes around. I think it's deep when I read each time different parts really stand out to make me ponder and think. So for the first Sunday in 2025, you know, it's the new year, it's a new calendar, new thing coming. I thought it's a good time we can talk about Christmas. As you know, Christmas is at least 12 days in a church calendar. And today is the last day of Christmas for us. But the way I want to talk today is this. I want to talk. Christmas every day. Not the 12 days, but every day. So I have to tell this. This is not my original thought. This thought came inspired by the play I watched at the Barnwell Soho Theater last December. The Trial of Ebenezer Scrooge. And some of you went and saw the play. And Marion, you were there in the play. So you knew everything. If you have any questions, ask Marion or find Frank. Ask him. Because he was in the play for a longer time than I thought he would be. It was impressive. You know, Frank says like, oh, I'm just doing for one weekend. Lo and behold, he was just throughout the whole stage all the time. That was impressive. But in the play, so the main plot was this, it was like the judge and Mr. Scrooge, Ebenezer Scrooge, came out and trying to make his argument about the Christmas spirits and all the people about it. And it was made in a sense. So I'll fast forward, ask all the details of things to Marion, he can talk about it. You know everything. You know all the lines. You can talk about it. But to go fast forward, what the main point of the play was about Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge says, Christmas spirit should be not working just one day a year, but should be working 365 days a year. Sorry, I have to think in Japanese first. 365 days a year. Christmas spirit should not be a one-day thing, but the spirit of Christmas must go on. At least that's what I got from the play in that one. So in other words, Christmas every day. But as a Christian, when we talk about Christmas every day, it's not about the Christmas spirit, but we talk about the Christmas every day. I'm not trying to mean that Christmas every day means like we cook the ham and eat the ham every single day from this now on, or drinking eggnog throughout the whole year, or watching the Christmas movies every day, but rather talking about Christmas every day to witness God's glory. Maybe just a glimpse of it every day. That's what I mean by Christmas every day. And I'm not talking from my head or from the play. I'm making it biblical. So that's where I come from today's reading from the Gospel of John, the first chapter. On verse 14, this is the Christmas story of John. It says, and the word, logos in Greek, became flesh and lived among us. The word, we know this logos is pointing to Christ. We know, we heard it all the time. So the Christ, the God's only Son, became flesh and lived among us. In Greek, this lived or dwell among us, that which translated, this lived and dwell, actually literally means tabernacle or making tent. So it's a tent it's talking about. So the God in flesh, in a tent among us. What is tent thing? We go back to history, the story in Old Testament. You may remember there was a time God's people were in the wilderness. It's only 40 years, it's not that bad. just whatever they're going around, not good GPS basically. Travel here and detour this and that around. God's people, freed from the oppression in Egypt, traveled 40 days in the wilderness. It's called Exodus. In that story, God told Moses to make a tent, the tabernacle, the dwelling place of God. In other words, this tent, the tabernacle thing, is the symbol of God's traveling with God's people in the wilderness. The time they did not know where their next food come from. That time, God dwelled on this tent and traveled with God's people. So in the same way, I may say, God in Jesus, who took a human body, the human tabernacle or the tent, and walked around the towns, the villages, cities, and journeyed with people in every walk of life, like wilderness journey. Jesus walked with people, reconciling God's people to God and each other, to heal the brokenness, at least some of it. And as many of us know, God's work of reconciliation is an ongoing thing. It's not done yet. God in flesh is living among us. Maybe we taste that through the forgiveness God gives every morning when we wake up, because God's given us life. We taste that through the bread and wine in communion we share together, and we hear this word, God loves you. And we also experience this maybe through hugs we receive from our grandchildren. Tiny hand holds you. Or the furry ones, like my cat, put her paws on me and remind me that I'm not alone. She's there with me, like God is with me. So, why not we celebrate Christmas every day in the little things we experience God's presence in our life? After all, Christmas is lots of fun things we do. Decorate the place with lots of joy. Share the food with friends and families. Lots of stories we talk. And we enter into this God's mystery with awe and wonder. Maybe asking you too much to living every day as a Christmas, maybe too much sometimes. Now maybe just try. Try this year. Live the Christmas is every day. Because God's love and healing in among us, in small and big scale, in every day. So I have to say, Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge was quite correct. Christmas, not one day, but 35 365 days a year. Friends, let's celebrate Christmas every day this coming year. Amen.